I want to welcome back Sara Donnellan. Sara was a tutor in the CIS Sandbox. She graduated from Bentley in 2022, and her topic today is how to build your personal brand and how to become a subject matter expert and the importance of lifelong learning even after graduation. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Marg. Like I said, I'm Sara Donnellan. I'm a senior consultant at Protiviti. I support our Microsoft Security Compliance Identity Practice. It's SCI for short. Like you mentioned, graduated Bentley 2022, so been in the real world for 2 years now. I graduated with a degree in CIS and then minors in marketing and then IDCC. And yeah, like I said, I've been at Protiviti ever since. Joined Protiviti as an intern junior year, and then was invited back for with a return offer, and have been working with them since then. When I actually had my internship, it was right at the beginning of COVID, so it was, we got sent home that spring and then that first summer, so everyone was still pretty much navigating what transitioning to online looked like. So kind of jumped into the real world during a kind of interesting time, but definitely was set up in a cool way, I would say. So yeah, when I interned, I started in a different practice than I'm in right now. Right now, like I said, I'm in Microsoft Security Solutions. That falls under our security and privacy practice. When I interned, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just in our enterprise applications solution. And I really liked it. I did a cool intern project and kind of got some different experience through that. And that was actually with a pet food company modeling their sales forecasting data. So it was kind of cool, but it wasn't really anything that interesting to me. Data's data at the end of the day, even if it's pet food. So was actually at the same time doing the internship for credit at Bentley with Professor Matra. Does anyone have Professor Matra right now? Not yet? Well, if you get the chance to take his classes, he's a great professor. And he encouraged everyone in that class to reach out to leadership at your internship that you were taking. And so at the time, Bentley curriculum didn't really cover cybersecurity at all. I think there was one elective class. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. It was just one elective that I had never taken. So I decided I wanted to learn about that a little bit more, and went. At the time at Protiviti, there were no consultants, senior consultants, managers in cybersecurity in Boston. It was just our practice lead for the entire practice happened to be sitting in my office, but no one really working under her. So her name's Natalie Fedjuk. I went straight to her and said, what do you do? Tell me everything about it. And so I can write my paper for my class, and really just had a great conversation with her. She ended up changing my return offer to come back and be the first consultant in security and privacy for Protiviti in Boston. So I guess flash forward 2 years, I just made senior early this past June, yeah, so a couple months ago. Thank you. And now we have 6 other consultants under me. So it was a really good time to get into Protiviti, get into this practice specifically, and just find an opportunity and run with it, even though I wasn't really trained in that. So I think there's kind of be a theme maybe throughout my talk, but kind of finding opportunities and approaching them, positioning yourself for them, even if you don't have, necessarily the training for it, because at our level, you're not expected to know that much, which isn't our benefit. So I guess just to kind of pull the room, could we do show of hands maybe? Who is a freshman right now? Okay. Do we have any sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? Okay, so we're all freshmen. Cool, that's awesome. Really cool. All right, well, I'm gonna make sure I tailor this to be a freshman audience as well. So can I ask, I know you guys pretty much just got to Bentley, does anyone know what Protiviti is or what Protiviti does? I know it's the career fair today, so if you're not there, you might miss them. I think they sponsor it. Anyone ever heard of Protiviti? No? All right, cool. Does anyone know what consulting is? Start there. Or does anyone want to take a guess how you would describe what consulting is?
You like solve problems for companies?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Exactly. Exactly. When I was a freshman, probably sophomore, junior, and yeah, probably up until I was a junior, looking for internships, I didn't know what consulting was. It just sounded like you just go and talk. Like, how do you even know what you're supposed to be consulting in? What makes somebody right out of college ready to be a consultant? How do you position yourself to say, yeah, I can solve your problem, multinational company. Yeah, I have the answers. I just got out of school. So I will say it's kind of a interesting world to jump right into. However, most consultants are fresh out of school and come in ready to learn. And yeah, you're pretty much exactly right. So some different kinds of consulting, of course, but at the end of the day, consulting is solving problems for businesses who either don't have the time to solve it themselves, don't have the expertise to solve it in-house themselves, or they have a goal that they need to achieve, they don't know how to get there, or they have a problem they need to solve, and they need to bring somebody else in to solve that problem for a variety of different reasons. And so yes, that's what consulting is. Decided to join that when I was still in school. And yeah, so I took the job with the mindset that this would be a continuation of my education, knowing I was coming in behind the ball, having never really studied cybersecurity. CIS at Bentley, Computer Information Systems, as a major, it's not computer science. It's adjacent to that, but it's not, we did some Python back in the day. I'm sure it's expanded now, but it's not complete programming. It's on a complete programming base, is what I should say. And we didn't really learn or at least I didn't really learn like the architecture. So I knew I was coming in behind the ball. I had to learn a bit. And yeah, so since starting within our IAM practice, we focused on identity, worked in all different kinds of industries. I'm not going to drop client names, but Protiviti as a whole works with over 80% of Fortune 100 companies. So we've worked with many of those, including hotel brands, travel companies, clothing and shoe brands, banks, healthcare, national regional hospitals, energy companies as well. And yeah, all different kinds of projects within there. And to be able to support those projects in the last 2 years, primarily last year, within my first year at the company, I went ahead and obtained 4 certifications to just give myself some credentials to start with. But with that being said, and we'll talk about this further today, but the majority of my knowledge came from independent studying and from your project experience. It doesn't really come from the certifications that you obtain or what you're going to learn in the classroom over your next 4 years. And so, yeah, like I said, a lot comes from project experience and finding a niche for yourself. So when we talk about personal branding and establishing a personal brand, a good chunk of that comes from establishing your product niche. What do you want to know the most about? What do you want to be known for knowing the most about? And what do you want people to come to you to answer questions about? So it might sound like a no-brainer, but you want to pick something you like and that you're interested in and that you're not going to be annoyed with people continuing to ask you about. You'll want to pick something that you're not going to be falling asleep reading articles about. You can stay up to date on. And I'd say that's going to be my biggest takeaway of today. You're not going to find that day one, September of your freshman year at Bentley, but over the next 4 years, I think it's a good thing to just keep in the back of your head. Hey, am I interested in this? And you're going to do a lot of case studies. You're going to do a lot of projects with real companies around Boston. You'll have internships, and just throughout that experience, I'd say that's maybe my biggest piece of advice is just think in the back of your head, is there any piece of this experience that I could see myself doing? Is there anything that I could see myself becoming passionate about? Okay, so I'm going to jump into this deck a little bit more and talk more about what specifically my team does. Okay, so a little bit more on what consulting is. So, like I mentioned, I'm in the SCI practice, that's security, compliance, identity. That falls under the Microsoft umbrella. And so those products fall under a bigger product called Entra, Microsoft Entra. And so at Protiviti, I work on a team that does a variety of different things related to Microsoft Entra within the IAM space. So There are projects, you can see at the top, about strategy. So we'll meet with executive level stakeholders, and we'll plan to meet a need. We may not be the ones doing the work. They might have people in-house doing the work, but we're going to help them define what that work is that needs to be done. We'll do assessments, and with assessments, we need to determine sometimes like a readiness assessment, the current state of their environment prior to implementing a product or a solution. Maybe we'll do a gap analysis type of assessment. So maybe they haven't kept up with best practices that Microsoft publishes, and they want a third party who's really focused and does keep up on those best practices to come in and look at their deployment, look at their environment, and say, hey, 80% of what you're doing is awesome, but you have some vulnerabilities in these other places. I guess kind of a recent example, CrowdStrike. I'm sure everyone heard about that. Yeah, I see some head nodding. Yeah, so CrowdStrike, that's an endpoint solution that a lot of our clients work with that works with Microsoft. To be fair, that was not a Microsoft deficiency in any way, but things like that. So we work with companies that deploy tools such as CrowdStrike, such as Zscaler, such as, I know someone's coming from Splunk in a couple of weeks. Splunk's another endpoint tool. So we'll go in and look at how you set up your endpoint tools with Microsoft solutions and see if there's any gaps in there. And then that will typically lead to remediation work. So how can we close those gaps? How can we help you fix this? And then two of the more fun projects, we'll do implementations. So a company maybe isn't using a Microsoft product today and they want to for one reason or another. We will come in and help them implement that solution. We'll develop it in their test environments to fit their needs, and we'll support go live, the implementation itself. You work with a lot of users that way. And then the other piece that we'll do, migration and consolidation. So that is the tech side of M&A, mergers and acquisitions. And with that, basically companies buying other companies, or maybe a company already owns a lot of other companies. And we need to get their data, their users, their permissions, all in the same place without impacting business. And so that can be a big challenge. But it's something most companies will probably do once or twice, or for my clients, sometimes 7 or 8 times, depending how many companies they are going to purchase. And then my team will come in and help them with the tech side of the acquisition. Or if they already own these environments, they want to consolidate the domains down. Maybe they'll go from 7 or 8 domains down to 1 or 2. So we'll come in and support that. But again, typically not, it's a very specific skill to do. There's no reason for a company to have in-house talent staying up to date on how to do a project like that. Prime example of why you would bring in consultants, a team that is specialized, maintains their certifications in the software that you need to do a project like that, and be ready for all the problems that you can't plan for but can kind of anticipate from doing many of these that you don't always get from just doing one. I'll take a quick pause there. Are there any questions on like the types of projects that my team does at this point? No? Okay, cool. So how do we get to this project space? Just again, I know everyone is freshmen, so this might just be helpful knowledge of the industry, but typically large companies, specifically public companies, they'll put out something called an RFI, it's a request for information, and they'll basically publish and say, hey, I have this need that I need addressed. Can anyone help me solve this problem? And they'll send that out and invite people to respond to it and provide their input, maybe put together some questions for them. What further information do we need to be able to formalize this into a proposal? And then RFI will turn to RFP, request for proposal. And that's when the company pretty much says, hey, I'm ready to accept proposals. If you guys think you can solve this problem we talked about, put together your proposal and come back and we can go from there. We'll move past that stage. Typically there's a lot of interviews, a lot of demos, a lot of getting things together in your own environment to model theirs, to show what that would look like. And then you'll move into SOW, which is statement of work, putting together something, pretty much putting your team up and saying, we have these people with these specific skills who have done this before. It takes them this amount of time. It'll cost you this many millions of dollars. So here, do you want this, yes or no? And when you put something like that forward, especially for large ticket projects, you need to be able to justify who you're putting there and why, how much that time is going to take, and why their bill rate is so high. And so how do we justify that kind of stuff? It's with your certifications. It's with your own experience, especially when you're less than 5 years into the industry. You don't want the client to look at the roster of the team and say, who is this person that graduated 6 months ago? Why am I paying a couple $100 an hour for them? That's never a good look, right? So you want the team to be able to justify, well, we need someone because they have this certification. They're able to do this project. It's your justification. It's why you're there. So I guess that's sort of the main, from this perspective, why it's really important to have those certifications, to give your team that justification of why you deserve a seat at the table, why you need to be on this project, and get that experience. Just a little bit about what my team, the types of projects we do. These are some of our Microsoft credentials. And then back over here. Here you can see just in the general Microsoft landscape, all of the big topic areas. Those are basically the IAM framework, Identity Access Management Framework. And then under that, you can see different components of it. So everything that's in black in this middle area here, these are feature sets that should be met by a particular tool. So what's in blue above it is the Microsoft solution to that tool. So as you can see, just from this alone, this is Microsoft Entra, more or less, and each of these solutions has maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 levels of certification to become an administrator, an expert, a SME in them. So I've only been here for 2 years in this world. How do you even begin to scratch the surface on something like this? And the answer is you kind of can't. So my approach is pick one or pick a couple, pick an area of focus, and start with that. So, and it'll get you further than maybe you think. So my current focus is this top bucket, identity governance administration, and then access management provisioning systems. Those 3 sort of components fit together in a product called Entra Identity Governance. That's what I personally have been focusing on. If you can slice this a different way, there's many other Microsoft tools. There's also endpoint tools in here, such as your CrowdStrike, your Zscaler, your Splunk, and a lot of solutions that focus on just one component of this IAM framework. So as you go through, you'll hear more about, when you hear about cybersecurity, I know many of the topics in tech have that focus. This is sort of the backdrop of that. This is IAM framework. Any questions on this? Well, I have this slide up. Yes?
How long is it if you get certified in any one of those boxes?
Yeah, it's a good question. We'll get into that in a little bit. It's kind of up to you. It depends on the certification. The way that Microsoft-specific certifications go, 900 being the easiest, 100 being the hardest, and then any combination down from there. Sometimes they skip by 2s. So you'll have your 900, 700, 500s. So it really depends. I have a couple more slides that have specific certifications and their estimated study time. Per exam tends to be on the easier side, 80 hours of study, and then on the harder side, you have to go to a boot camp and be in person, and they're a little bit more structured. So a couple months, I guess, is what I'll say. If that's your main focus, couple months, you can get really specialized in something. The good thing about Microsoft specifically is that their training is very accessible. So anyone can go to Microsoft Learn. I think with Bentley emails, I know we're E3 or E5 customer at Bentley. With your Bentley emails, you should be able to get some sort of certification support, I should say, certification support on their Learn Microsoft website. And so I'll show some solution paths in a way, in a little bit, training paths I should call them. And yeah, we'll see from there. So here's a question. Yeah, it's a good question. So some of these, yes, the certification will be tied to something really specific, like Purview, for example. Sorry, to repeat the question, or if you want to go ahead and repeat the question.
Hello. Yeah. Which specific boxes are for the certifications?
Yeah, yes, so it's a great question. Short answer is all of them. Long answer is some of them are sliced a little bit differently. So some of these are going to be covered under, there's like a AZ Azure path that will cover some of these. Some will be under an SC path, security compliance path. Some will be under MS, Microsoft, just general Microsoft. Some will be AI. So if we look at our Purview and DLP, I think those are up there. Those will fall under an AI path. So short answer, all of them. Long answer, it depends, is what I'll give. And then under any of the certifications themselves or the training paths, there'll be individual modules that will correlate directly to these. So you can find an entire training day, training module on conditional access, for example. Okay, yeah, so like I was saying, at lower levels, we are able to justify our solution expertise with a specific area of focus, like any of the ones you see up here. Personally, I'm focused on the tool that's Entra Identity Governance that covers, like I said, the top and the middle boxes here in the Microsoft capability area. And so that's personally given me a leg up on my team and on the things that I've been working on. And I'll jump over here to figure out how to click over. Ooh. Okay, yeah. Here are some key paths. So kind of getting to your point there. These key paths, you see the first one here is M365 Associate Administrator. Those are your fundamental exams. It's going to cover probably a little bit high level on a lot of those areas. The middle one there is Cybersecurity Administrator Expert. It's going to cover a little bit more beyond that. We'll take a look into these in just a second. And then we have another one on the end, that's Quest. That's going to be specific to the migrations, to domain migration for on-premise, things like that. So I'll just click through these quickly and then get back into it. But yeah, this is the training path, and I can share this with Mark if there is interest in these. But again, as a freshman, I wouldn't worry too much about taking any exams or anything at this point, just for structure and for understanding of how you, or how like in the real world, I guess, they structure these kinds of exams. So like I said, we start at 900s for your easiest exams. This is your stage 1 level, so these 4 exams. Stage 1.5, a little advanced fundamentals, you take these 2 more. And this will get you to M365 Associate Administrator. And then your Cybersecurity Administrator Expert, ACEs, you will take this next set, the stage 2 level of exams. So another 4 on top. And then your stage 3 and go for architecture focus. You can also ditch the architecture focus if you don't need to be cybersecurity administrator. And you can see here approximate learning times along those and the exam names under them. And then this is for Quest migration, administrator expert level. So this is the alternate stage 2 to be a Quest certified migration expert, and then a different stage 3 architecture focus, M365 administrator. The CISSP takes a long time to get certified. I think Harrison will be here in a couple weeks. I think he may have just got this, or CISA, something similar. So this is the big one down here. Takes some time. You need years of experience. So no one's expected to have these right out the gate, and no one is expected to come in with these. The idea is you're going to come to your first job, be it in consulting, be it in whatever it may be in industry, and you're going to say, hey, I just graduated Bentley. I just came with this degree. I took these really cool classes. I had these really cool internships. I know everything. And they're going to say, you might think you know everything, but it's, you got to put it in the context of our environment, put this in the context of your client. If you're in consulting, it's going to change every day. So while what you learn at Bentley is really important, it can't be all that you are willing to show up with. So the most important thing that you could do at Bentley, yes, pay attention in your classes, but pay more attention to how you're learning and what works for you when you are learning. So as an example, if you're in a Python class, or let's say IT 101 or CS 101 today, and you're learning about Excel, and you just got to wrap up that module, and granted, it's been a few years since I've been in that class, it might feel really minimal, but I will tell you, day one, you're going to be asked to repeat some formulas, and it's really embarrassing when you have to go look it up. So there are some skills that just don't go away, Excel being one of them. Learn your formulas, learn how to do your pivot tables and everything in between there. Excel does not go away, no matter if you're in Microsoft Solutions or anything else. So there are definitely some importance there, I would say. And beyond that, we talk about our personal brand and how you want to be known on your team, in your office. That's going to come to, or a big thing that's going to, a big piece that's going to play into that is how you show up and how you present yourself in the face of a challenge, in the face of something you don't know. How you approach learning. Are you eager to learn still? Do you make that evident? Do you want to be eager to learn, or can you actually put the work in to do it, because there's no grades anymore? At that point, you're not going to be necessarily paid more. You're not going to see that instant return of your work. It kind of has to come from a different place, is what I'll say. Any questions at this point? Okay. Yeah, so just a couple of takeaways. You're going to learn a lot of really important things in the classroom. You're going to learn a lot of important things in your training, in any of your certifications that you take, but until you show up to the time to apply them, all of that kind of goes out the window, right? So depends on the environment that you're working in. There could be, you can never be fully prepared for any particular situation. It's just about how you show up and how how you approach it. So coming in with the knowledge of how to do maybe a little bit of coding is important, but I think what's more important is learning how to solve that problem. And that's what has supported me through my learning paths and gotten me to where I am today. I'd say the other important thing with when it comes to training is staying on top of it, because especially in cybersecurity, trainings don't necessarily keep up with the speed of development in the real world, right? So the time that I'm showing you these are probably a couple, we update them probably every 6 months. I bet you some of these might even be out of date already or in the process of being updated. So I guess that's sort of another piece. It kind of has to become part of your routine to stay up to date. So I'd be lying if I said I'm reading, cybersecurity articles like in general every day. I don't. That's a big piece to take off. I think it's really important to focus on something smaller. So back to like the framework that I showed, pick a couple little buckets that you can handle and get really trained up on those. So I know in the original name of this talk today was, I think it was something about becoming a SME. Does anyone know what that means? SME? Okay, it's okay. It means subject matter expert. It's not something you're supposed to know. I don't think I knew it even while I was at Bentley. It's just a term that people use to say this person read a lot of articles about this thing or has a lot of certifications in this one place. So you want to work towards becoming a subject matter expert in something that you are interested in. And those two things, you can't really have one without the other. If you're not interested in it, you're not going to want to be the expert, the go-to person in it. And yeah, I think that's another takeaway. Find something you enjoy. It makes it go a lot easier. Yeah, a couple other cool things with the Microsoft path. Like I said, I know a lot of freshmen here today, but something cool that has come out of this is that Microsoft is really segmented. So they're a really huge company, but you can actually break them down to really small teams depending on product that they work on. So even within that Entra product that covers all of those boxes from my framework earlier, even within that larger Entra bucket, there's smaller teams. And so when you become really specialized in a piece of that, that smaller team is going to want to talk to you. So something that has come out of this, even though I'm only 2 years out of Bentley, every month I have an advisor's call, and I'm one of the Entra advisors who helps shape the tool based on my experiences with my clients, going to demos, showing this, how this works at people's complex environments that even the developers of the tool can't account for. The same way that we are always learning, so are they. Everyone is. So I know when I was still at Bentley, I just thought, you know, the people who walk around in suits, they know they've been here a long time, they know how everything works, and it's simply not the case. They're evolving just like the rest of us. They're constantly learning. They have to be. And a lot of them take the approach of learning from us, learning from people who are just getting into it with fresh eyes. And so that has been really a cool experience to have, being an advisor 2 years out of school to a multinational, very large company. Again, in the small little speck of their of their tool portfolio, but it's been a really cool experience. A couple other things, just because I am back at Bentley. I would say, especially as freshmen, focus on building your connections with your freshman friends, and beyond, but focus with building on your connections, because every day I work downtown Boston, live in Southie. I see my classmates, the people I had freshman year group projects with, at the bars on weekends, getting lunch, just downtown, in the elevator, going to my office because maybe their company is, the floor above or the floor below. So didn't anticipate that to be as prevalent as it would be, but Bentley Falcons stick together. They are definitely around. They're in Boston. They will be your coworkers. They will be your peers. They will be your bosses. In my case, they will be your clients too. The first project I was ever on, I was really nervous to go to my first client meeting. It was like me and a manager, and I get there, and the client stakeholder that I was meeting for very large Fortune 50 hotel brand. I get there, and the director of IAM is a former Bentley alumni. And then also Protiviti alumni. So people love shared experience, and Bentley comes up a lot more than I anticipated it would, given how small it is. So yeah, my first project, director of IAM, Bentley alumni, and then the first major demo that I gave for a bank, a little over a year ago. It was virtual, there's maybe 35 people on the call between clients, and they brought in external team to come and help with vendor selection. My whole team was on. I'm a year out of school, not senior yet. I'm just figuring it out as I go. And after it was maybe a 2-hour demo, I'm walking through my tool. I wrap up the demo, and I get a LinkedIn notification. It says like, "Hey, fellow Falcon," and it's director at Microsoft of technical sales for all of FSI, the whole financial services industry. He was on the call. I had no idea. Looked me up, saw we were both Bentley Falcon, and now we have a really close working relationship. He's invited me out to the Microsoft campus a number of times for different meetings. He's made great introductions for me, and none of that would have been the case if it didn't really own my Bentley experience. So I would say just keep that in the back of your head always. Former professors, former classmates, former anyone in the Bentley alumni network. And a couple other things. I also worked at the CIS Sandbox for a little over a year, and I actually ran the topics in tech with Professor Friedberg. By ran, I mean would be the person sometimes recording it for YouTube and then having to upload it, or design the little banner to say, hey, this person's coming, reach out to them on LinkedIn. And from that experience, it definitely helped grow my network as well. And yeah, Bentley has a lot of really great alumni who love to support other alumni. And so it's definitely something I would say keep in the back of your head to take advantage of, especially when it comes time to look for internships and things like that. And yeah, that's all pretty much I had. Are there any questions? Anything you guys want to know? Yes? Wait for the microphone. Good. Good question. I think a big challenge is, I'd say specifically in my solution, kind of determining what that niche is, right? I didn't come out of Bentley saying, I'm going to work in cybersecurity and I'm going to work with Microsoft. Those two things never once came out of my mouth. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I took this as a learning opportunity. I'd say my biggest challenge was probably having to find something that I actually enjoyed. It definitely took a number of projects that I was less interested in to help find something that I am interested in and want to pursue. So I'd say that was probably a big challenge in this space. That was a good question. Any other questions? I think the mic's coming.
Hello? Oh, there we go. I was just wondering, you said you didn't have like a lot of expertise in the field coming out of college. Like, how did you make the jump from not knowing that much about it to knowing that this is what you wanted to do, like, for a career? So.
Yeah, it's a great question. Read a lot of Microsoft articles. Yeah, did a lot of training. If I went back a couple slides, that initial fundamental training was pretty much voluntold. If you're going to be on this team, you need to do your fundamentals. So started with that. And then amidst some client work, I was doing something I didn't like. I was doing Active Directory assessments at the time. They got a little repetitive, but it was a really, really good foundation. I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without building that base of foundation. But it was enough for me to know I can't do these assessments forever. I do not like doing these. So when you have that experience, it makes you more motivated to find something that you like a bit more. And so once I got good at those assessments, I could finish them a little bit early and have some more time to put towards studying and trying to find something else that I like to do. It was actually at the advice of somebody on my team who saw this coming. So this tool that I'm working on, Entra Identity Governance, only came out September of last year. It's 1 year old. So because Protiviti is a partner with Microsoft, we get access to tools like that early. So we had some that was in something called private preview. And so in our lab environment, we maintain our own lab to practice and develop stuff in. And so in that lab, I was pretty much tasked with putting together some examples of what was newly released. To do that, obviously no one had done it before. It's still in private preview, very limited documentation. So it was small enough for me to, it wasn't this crazy huge scope of something for me to jump into. It was much more targeted. So I was able to focus on something much smaller, so just the lifecycle workflow, something small, develop that in the lab, and then, of course, people would ask questions. They're not reading about it. They're expecting me to have those answers. So then starting to build my expertise there. And then lifecycle workflows as a component has to connect to something else, right? So how am I getting my users here? That was the next piece of the puzzle I had to figure out. And that's how I started basically collecting my little cubes from that framework to make something that fits all together. Now, flash forward a year, this is all generally available within Microsoft. They're competing with industry leaders who have been doing this for years. So companies like SailPoint or Savient, you probably haven't heard of them. I didn't until I started doing this. every company has identity, every company has access, every company needs to manage both of those things, no matter how big or how small they are. And a lot of them use a tool like SailPoint or Savient, now Microsoft, to do that. So seeing that there was this rush that was going to come, so it was just kind of a good time to get into it. It was still small enough, digestible to start learning it piece by piece, and interesting enough, or more interesting than what I was currently doing, and it incentivized me to work towards learning something new. Hey.
Hi. I wanted to know what your biggest piece of advice would be to someone looking to go into consulting.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would say learn how to learn is the biggest piece of advice I could give. That's all consulting is. It's, like we said earlier, it's solving people's problems. You can't anticipate people's problems. You can take as many certifications as you want, but until you get into an environment, like I said, it kind of goes out the window for the most part. Learn how to learn, because it's never gonna, you'll always have to. Every project that you'll get placed on, every day there's gonna be a new challenge. And so you will never just have that information sitting in the back of your head. You will always have to go and figure out how to apply what you have and what's missing. So learning how to learn, I'd say, is the biggest piece of advice I could give.
Am I on? Oh, there I am. Hi, everybody. So, like, going off of, like, the idea of internships and whatnot, could you be able to speak, like, a little bit more about your experience with them and how they kind of propelled you to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. So in my experience, the internship, so I did my internship with Protiviti, like I said, right before COVID. It was the first summer of, like, COVID year, 2020. And so prior to that, when I was a sophomore, they did, it was called, like, Discovery. I think it's called Discovery Day. And it's like a day for sophomores. Most consulting firms do them. Big Four do them, Protiviti, RSM, number of other consulting firms that recruit at Bentley and other places do these sort of open house days. I would say keep an eye out for those sophomore years when they really start. I believe before my Discovery Day, there was 4 or 5 rounds of interview. And then they invite a small group to come and discover the company. So I was invited to that. And then there was another maybe round or 2 after that Discovery Day. I was a sophomore in college. Didn't know anything. Wasn't expected to, but I didn't know anything. Just showed up with a good attitude and got my internship offer sophomore year. And then it was pretty much all straight line from there. So specifically in consulting, there's a lot of straight lines like that. Specifically at Bentley, I know we have like our Deloitte externship. Some of my very good friends have done that. Again, straight line to full-time offer. I'd say that's something, as a freshman, I don't think anyone told me. I didn't realize that would be the case. But definitely meet with your career advisors. Bentley top career advisor program, top job placement school. I would say definitely take advantage of that. All the Bentley connections and career fair that I know is down in, where is it today? Is it in the arena? Yeah, I'd say it's a great place to be. But between freshman and sophomore year, I don't think I knew anyone that did an internship. I would say do something fun while you can. Do something really fun. Take a job somewhere new and do something cool this summer, because no one's expecting you to have an internship this summer. Yep.
What did your interviews consist of?
Yeah, good question. It's been a while now. There were behavioral interviews, so just asked a lot of questions, and they want to see not if you'll get the answer right, but how you answer it. So there were behaviorals, there were case studies. So they gave like some kind of like basic consulting questions, like, hey, here's a company, it's having this problem, how would you approach it? They're not expecting you to have an answer. Again, they just want to see how you approach that sort of problem. I think the only thing that you could probably do wrong in a case like that is propose a solution, because you're not supposed to have a solution. They want to see how you get there, not that you just jump to an answer. So yeah, I think first round was, I think, just a phone call, a couple phone calls maybe. Maybe a video. Again, this was COVID times. I think I was on Zoom and just kind of asked a couple questions, try to get to know you a little bit. Then behavioral rounds, case studies, and then a couple were group. There were a couple groups as well, where they put you in with other people who are interviewing and see how you problem solve as a group too. There were a couple of those, but yeah, pretty much just take it as they come. You could do some research beforehand, but every company is different. Every round's going to be different. I think at Protiviti specifically, they have managers and above of every solution facilitating interviews. So it's not always going to be, the first couple rounds are going to be learning and development people, teaming people who do this for a living, HR type learning and development. And then once you get to behavioral and case studies, those are going to be consultants who are interviewing you. They also have people pinging them on the side. They, so you want to do the best you can, but I will say those can vary. They can vary. Yeah.
What's a day in the life of a consultant like? How many hours do you work? In the office, at home,
Yeah.
on site? What's a day in your life like?
Totally. Well, here's your consultant answer. It depends. So it depends. Depends largely on many things. Depends on your firm. So I can speak for Protiviti. We don't have an in-office policy. Our policy is we are doing what our clients are doing. So I have peers who are in office 5 days a week, maybe 40 hours, maybe 50 hours, depending on the project they're on. I have peers who have never been to an in-person meeting. So it really depends on what your clients are doing. Right now we're seeing a shift to in-office more, or a couple days in office. So yeah, depends on the client at the given time. To speak to my personal day in the life, I live in Boston, close enough to the office, so I'll tend to go into the office maybe 3 times a week, just to hang out with other consultants. We're all on different projects, but it's nice to have that camaraderie, like get together and be in the office. It can be pretty fun. Typically, again, depends on the projects and how many projects. Right now, I'm in the middle of a couple of assessments, an implementation, and a migration. I'm working a lot of hours, but it's not always like this. Right now, I would say between 60 and 70, including weekends, but I would say it could be as low. Sometimes you're on the bench. You're really probably putting in 25 to 30, if I'm being honest, here and there. That will maybe happen a couple times a year. And then sometimes it is well over. So it depends. They're flexible. They want to support you. So again, when I started, I wasn't doing 80-hour weeks. I'm now rarely doing 80-hour weeks, also, let me specify. If I am, it's because the migration isn't going too well, and that's kind of the case right now, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it depends, is my answer.
We have time for one more question, so who wants the last one, please? Pass the mic.
Hello. So, as a consultant, how often do you kind of see the result of your work?
It's a really good question. So again, it's going to be like project specific. If I'm doing an implementation, I'm going to see it at the end of the project, depending how big of an implementation it is. So it depends on the type of work. I'd say pretty often though, which is really exciting. It's really nice to see something like that and a happy end user at the end. Some types of projects are more, so you're just responsible for a specific section. And so I kind of do my part, hand it over to the next team. So for like an assessment, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to do the assessment to the best of my ability, hand it over to somebody else to talk about taking it to the next steps. How are we going to fix those problems? Right now, I'm focused on other things, so I won't see that all the way through, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, it depends on the type. It's really nice to see it come full circle. I'll say the migrations and the consolidations are the most rewarding to see come all the way to fruition, because a lot of times you're meeting with end users. And I've gotten lucky with some really cool clients that the end users are really awesome to get to know and to work with. I can give like a quick example if there's time, but really large sports company, and that's as much as I'll say, very large sports company, probably upwards of 10, 20 brands within it, was a client that I was working on for last year, and we had to go user by user, meet every single person, and give them, switch out their laptops and onboard them to their new system because of the process that we ended up taking. And so I got the chance to meet everybody pretty much on the East Coast at that company. What a cool experience. My LinkedIn has never been cooler after meeting everyone. And yeah, so it's nice to see things like that come full circle. You get to meet a lot of cool people doing that.
Big thanks to Sarah for coming back.